Eastern European trucking companies in the United States are in some serious trouble, and they know it. Everything from visa crackdowns, 1099 abuse, legal heat, and government audits. The government's really closing in. The party's kind of over for many of these companies, and for a lot of them, the clock is ticking. For over a decade, many Eastern European-owned companies operating in the United States built their entire business on one key ingredient, and that was non-citizen drivers. Drivers from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Moldova, and other Eastern European nations were recruited heavily. They were often brought in with student visas, asylum applications, humanitarian parole. Some didn't even have proper work authorization. Many of them were chasing the American dream, but instead they got caught in a nightmare. Long hours, low pay, poor working conditions, all while their employers cashed in. So why did these owners use their own people to profit? Well, it was easy, and it was very profitable. They brought in drivers from back home, people who shared their language, their culture, and background, drivers who trusted them because they spoke the same language and claimed to offer a path to success in America. But that trust became a weapon. They used it to convince drivers to sign 1099 contracts. They leased overpriced trucks. They run endless miles, often with no protection and little pay. It was kind of the good old boy feeling. You're from my village, great. Here's your lease. Here's your fuel card, your dispatcher. Now don't ask questions type deal. It wasn't just exploitation. It was betrayal. It was a betrayal of their own communities. And it was one of the biggest betrayals to the American dream itself. Because the promise wasn't supposed to be come to America and get used to your own people. It was supposed to be come to America and build something better. Now, let's be clear about something. Not all Eastern European companies are bad. Some are doing it right. They're treating drivers fairly. They're paying them on time, and they're creating real opportunity. For every 50, there might be one that's legit. That's why it's so important to know who you're working for. And if you're unsure, you need to reach out to me. I spent 12 years working in Illinois in the trucking industry. We live part-time in Eastern Europe, in Lithuania. I've sat in their kitchens, I've listened to their stories, and I've seen firsthand how some of these drivers work so hard to build a life here. But I've also seen how companies use that desperation to run dirty, and I'm not okay with that. I'm from the South, obviously, you can hear it in my voice. Here's my family sitting over here listening to everything that I'm doing. And I stand with the American drivers. But this is why I'm calling all of this out. Not because I'm against anyone, because I know what right looks like. Big Rig Nation is more than a platform. It's a protection network for drivers. You don't have to get played. We will help you find the right company and the next person to go to work with. Here's how these companies kept their empire, running. And it was done with 1099 contracts. They didn't want employees, okay? It didn't fit their mold. They wanted contractors. And the reason why is because they didn't have to pay payroll taxes. They didn't have to pay workman's comp, no benefits, no responsibility. But let me say this too. Let me get this straight. Being 1099 is not bad. That's not the direction I'm going with this. In fact, some of the best paying opportunities today are 1099. There are companies out here that are truly changing drivers' lives. They're offering money, freedom, and even benefits that rival W-2 setups. But that's not how these exploiters used it, okay? They used 1099 as a shield to run illegal, to control the drivers, and to dump blame on the drivers when things got so bad. This is why 1099 has gotten so more popular. And the reason why, the number one reason why, is because of taxes. After the Trump Tax Cut Job Pay Act, the W-2 drivers lost their per diem, while 1099 still get it. That's tens of thousands in tax breaks. It's huge. And in expense deductions, mileages, your meals, it makes a huge difference in trucking if you're a truck driver. And these companies, they know that. But instead of offering a fair deal, they dangled those benefits and buried the driver and fake leases, the fuel cards, the dispatch control, and the shady deductions. You're a contractor kind of idea, but you follow every order that we give you. And when the DOT comes a knocking, guess what? It's your problem. These models have worked for years now, but the wall's closing in. The federal authorities, the DHS, ICE, FMCSA, they're stepping up all of their enforcement. They're going after visa fraud investigations. They're looking at 1099 misclassifications and audits. They're shutting down orders. They're doing asset seizures. Drivers are being deported, fleets are getting parked, and companies are getting sued. Now, this isn't happening everywhere, but in 8 states, the heat is on full blast. Illinois, Indiana, Florida, Pennsylvania, Texas, California, New Jersey, New York. These are some of the hot zones where Eastern European carriers are very thick and where enforcement is turning up the volume. And let's talk about Illinois, especially, Chicago. It's the heart of the freight in the Midwest. It moves over 1.5 billion tons of freight a year. It's also where a huge concentration of Eastern European run carriers are at. Companies like GP Transco, Unlimited Carriers, they were both started by Lithuanian immigrants and are some of the top-rated, clean, and respected companies that are up there. But with their success came a huge tidal wave of really bad companies. Companies popping up overnight, running shady 1099 deals. They were cutting corners. They were abusing visa drivers, and now the authorities are responding. New Jersey is using the ABC test to classify workers, where they're winning cases. New York is hammering down on wage theft, illegal deductions, and employment violations. In Texas, there is a lot of lease fraud going on with companies out here in the oil fields. And these quiet states, look, these places where we thought everything was safe, guess what? It's not so quiet anymore. All of this is shaking up the industry. It's making major freight delays. Companies are shutting down. Brokers are cutting ties left and right with the bad actors. But this shakeup, I think it's very good for the honest carriers. It means that fair companies, whether they're W-2 or they're 1099, they finally have a chance to stand out without being undercutted by crooks. The exploiters, they'll either clean up or they're going to disappear the hard way if they don't start listening. Here's where we go from here. W-2 companies, in order to start attracting more talent, they're going to have to start being honest. They're going to have to start paying more. They are going to have to stop these games that they're playing when it comes to sign-on bonuses, giving drivers percentages of detention pay, giving them $15 an hour for detention pay. Really? So, this is why legit 1099 programs that are on the rise, that give full transparency, are winning. Okay, the DOT and the FMCSA, they are pushing hard. If you've been in this business long enough, and in the last 5 years, you can see what they've done with ELDs. They're going after non-citizen drivers. They've started the SAT program. They are looking into everything now. Look at what's going on with leasing, where they built the task force. Trucking is changing, and in some big ways, fast. What you are doing is watching the hustlers finally getting flushed out of this industry. And we're watching the fall of trucking empires that were built on smoke and mirrors to begin with. And for some final words, this isn't about race or regions. It's about respect. Respect for the drivers, respect for the labor, and respect for the dream this industry was built on. If you're a driver and you've been used, you're not alone, okay? If you're a company that's doing it right, keep going. We're 100% with you. And if you're still out here cutting corners, robbing drivers, and hiding behind contracts, believe me, your time is running out. Big Rig Nation is here to expose the truth, to protect the drivers, and to put power back in the hands of the people behind the steering wheel. Because we're not just truckers, we're a nation. And thank you for watching Big Rig Nation.